The following segment is sponsored by Daniel A. White and Associates. It does not necessarily reflect the views of WDEL or Forever Media.
The Rick Jensen Show on 101.7 FM, 1150 AM, WDEL, and streaming to your smart speaker and mobile device.
Sheesh, I mean, these guys are good. Dan White and Associates, Andrew Wood, Dan Simon and everybody, and of course Dan White himself. And in today's economy, and you're planning for retirement, you need someone like these guys to help you along because, well, you got a lot of folks that they use and they know, and many of them have been through times like these, high inflation and challenging times in order to save money and try to save for retirement. Andrew, thanks for being on, man. So what's one of the things that you guys are focused on right now?
Yeah, Rick, thanks for having me. We focus. We do a lot of, obviously, keeping in touch with the economy and what is going on. And things are certainly changing, and they've certainly changed over the last couple of years. But, I'll tell you, I've been in this business. I started back in 2006. So there are still a lot of things that are kind of remaining the same. And I'll tell you, I mean, Dan talked about this, and we do our radio show that talks about this, but there's a retirement savings crisis. And what I want to go through are just common mistakes that we see and really help people kind of put together a plan forward in terms of, taking care of some of the issues like debt, and on top of that, being able to save at the same time. So just want to talk about some of those mistakes and hopefully helping people avoid some of those mistakes.
Please.
Okay. So first thing I want to go through, common thing that I hear is that people want to get out of debt, obviously. Getting out of debt is very, very important. I think it's a great goal for most people. But not all debt is necessarily bad debt. And unfortunately, if you focus too much on eliminating debt, then it can prevent people from, whether it's building an emergency fund or better yet, saving for their retirement. And that kind of leads me into, one of the second things that I was going to bring up is that I see a lot of people, especially late 50s, 60s, for example, that they want to pay off that house, right? How long ago was it when we were seeing interest rates in the 2s, 3%?
Oh yeah, 15.
I can guarantee 12. A lot of people on the radio right now are listening, and their interest rates on their mortgages are 2, 3, maybe 4%, but nowhere near what we're seeing for current rates. So, I see a lot of times where it's people do have their retirement savings and they want to just say, you know what, I want to get out of this mortgage and I'm going to cash out of my 401k. And not to say that can't work, but, obviously there's taxes to be paid on that. If you're still working and your income is relatively high, all the money that you're pulling out of your 401k is going to be taxable at your ordinary income tax rate. So again, that takes away purchasing power, I should say earnings potential in the future, and you're paying excessive taxes just to get out of that debt. And again, if you're only paying 2 to 3% on your interest, compared to where we are today, it's basically free money.
So let me interrupt here. Let me interrupt because I know, for example, there are not internet banks, but actually brick and mortar banks here in Delaware. You can get 4% APY. It's like 3.92 per month, and then comes out to 4% at the end of the year in a money market account. You can get from Schwab, for example, 5% in their money market fund, which is different. But dude, even if you're worried about the markets right now, and you got money in the 401k, doesn't it make sense then to go in a money market fund at 5% and keep paying your 3% mortgage as opposed to taking money out of the 401k and paying off that mortgage? Because at least you got the 2% margin there.
It certainly can be beneficial to do that. And it's, finally we're to the point where savers are benefiting again. There's a value in saving because you're able to earn interest on your savings at this point. So it's a very, very good thing for savers when they're able to make money on that safe money again.
Yeah, plus the other thing, too, and you're familiar with this, there are insurance-backed, government-protected, qualified investments that people can put into their retirement funds that are paying more, like 6-7%.
Sure. Again, there's a lot of different safe alternatives out there, but again, the bottom line for that is, these higher interest rates are benefiting savers because, again, now they're making money where you're not earning nothing anymore. Yeah. There was even a point where, I remember looking at accounts and, the fees were actually larger than what they were earning on their savings. You know what I mean? Like, It was crazy, but that was the reality of things when interest rates were so low for so long. But again, interest rates have obviously come up, so you're able to benefit from that if you are a saver. So, let's just say you're able to strike a balance, right? And you say, okay, well, I want to pay off my mortgage with whether it's just on time or if I want to keep, maybe paying a little bit more principal, so we're paying it off earlier. But the assumption is if you make that balance, you're going to be able to put money into a retirement savings vehicle, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the internet is obviously it's a blessing, and it's I think people would agree with me. It's also a curse because we've got access to all the information out there. But what you find is that there are a lot of people out there that are only investing in what they know, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's healthcare, they know healthcare, they're investing in healthcare. It can be kind of dangerous, and also put limitations on you in terms of your earnings potential. Obviously, you want to strike a balance there and have diversification. Not just investing in what you know, because quite frankly, we don't know everything. You know what I mean? So the internet is very good, but again, don't let that kind of put blinders on you because there could be potential elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, people ask, well, how much do I need to retire? Well, I mean, there are people saying, I'll try to get like 70% of your income for retirement. And there's some people say, gosh, I don't think I can do that. Well, what if you only have $500,000? Well, the rule of 4%, right? You got that. And that says you take out $20,000 a year, 30 years, even if you're retired at 60, at least you got the 20 years. So, but then that's 30 years, right? But $20,000 a year. So can you do that? These are tough questions to answer.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I mean, based on some of the research that I've been reading, is that a lot of those numbers are overestimated. Just because of the normal lifestyle, typically your first 5-10 years out of retirement, you end up doing more things, and then you start slowing down a little bit, like the travel, for example. One other thing that I'll point out, and this actually hits home with me a little bit, and I see it all the time, but there's going to be a huge wealth transfer up in the next 10, 20 years. And what I mean by that is you have older folks that are going to be passing away, and there's going to be a huge transfer of wealth to kids, for example. Doesn't really matter their age, but I'll tell you, they're not fun conversations to have. They're awkward conversations to have, but I think it's important to make sure that people are on top of, specifically what their parents are doing. Avoiding that type of thing, it can obviously be very expensive. It can cause a lot of issues. So to avoid those types of issues, you want to be careful about it, but I think it is important to kind of understand where your parents stand, what their plan is. Is there a legacy plan for you, and maybe have that conversation, and do you factor that into your retirement as well? So
you're right. That is really important. I mean, of course, my brother and I, we knew that we had the expectation from Dad when he was passed, like we'd get nothing. Why? Spend it all, and actually he exceeded our expectations because he passed away, and my brother and I both became thousandaires.
God bless him.
Yeah, like
I do like hearing that. Having my last check bounce. It's a goal for a lot of people that I hear. That I see. But again, there's a balance. There's always a balance.
Well, again, I mean, there wasn't much. I mean, you paid for funeral expenses, things like that, and then and there was enough there for a couple dinners and all. But that's cool because at the time I was working on all sorts of like Medicaid papers and things like that, and it is a challenge. So honestly, if you have kids, take time to make a plan. I mean, Dad and I made the plan, but basically the plan was me doing everything I could to take care of the guy. And I don't want to put that on my kid. You know what I mean? It wasn't horrible, wasn't terrible, wasn't bad. And it happens with thousands and thousands of Delawareans every single day. But to your point, if you can do something to help out with the kids, that would really mean a lot in their lives. And it's a good reason to give Andrew Wood the call over at 888-690-8820 and say, listen, we got to have a conversation. Seriously, 888-690-8820, Dan White and Associates. You make some great points here that really hit home with me, too.
Thanks, Rick. Go Phils. Big game tonight.
Big game where, let's see, we ate Marlin's sandwich last night, which was nice.
Did.
Yeah. And hope to again today here on WDEL. You'll hear the game after Delaware's evening news, the afternoon news, rather. And then we've got the afternoon edition of Delaware after Delaware's afternoon news with Chris Carl. Sunday, 7 a.m. on the money, Dan White and Associates. Make sure you listen for that too, right?
Absolutely. I don't have the radio show for this Sunday, but I'm sure it's going to be going.
Well, look, you guys are doing great work for a lot of great people, and thank you very much, sir. Take care, Andrew. All right, buddy.
Thanks, Rick.
Take care.